Recording in progress. All right, welcome to the penultimate. We have one more of these calls before Summit, the week of Summit. We'll have one more call, but this is our monthly legislative and PAC call. I had a quick call this afternoon with Chris. Chris had a prior engagement, and we excused him. And I guess Joel's got a baby or something. I don't know. Yeah, but yeah. So Brian's with us. Jim was on the call. John Dowds was having to work the window or something. I don't know, some excuse. He couldn't make it, but he's here now. So we're going to talk to you obviously about Summit. Brian's going to give you some of the political stuff. We're going to give you where we are in the planning stages, where you guys should be setting your meetings and assistance on that. Actually, I'll just hand it over to Jim. Jim, you want to take it away?
Sure. So we have about 300, right up against 300 registered, which is a pretty good group. When we get there, we'll be going over some of the same old stuff and some new stuff. We're going to focus on WEP GPO for our message and Title 39. I will have packets for each state that has bios on each of the freshmen. I have also gone through and identified those people who came back, who were co-sponsors on HR 82 last year in the 117th Congress. And we already have 151 co-sponsors this year on HR 82, and it's virtually the same bill. And so I'll be identifying those who were co-sponsors last year, who aren't yet co-sponsors this year, so that as each state goes to visit those staffers, or if they happen to get lucky and see the actual member, they'll get a chance to, you were behind us last year. We'd like your support this year. What do you need from us to reach out and support us and see if we can't close the gap on that? Again, 292 co-sponsors gets us a little bit of a faster track to the floor, but apparently not a guarantee to the floor. We have a couple of other sundrious bills, and they'll be in the position paper, and they'll be in the information paper. And then Title 39, we're looking for somebody to champion Title 39 reform, so that we can try to get that thought at least out there and moving. And Edmund has done a lot of work on some of the language suggestions that would help us to define supervisor organization, postmaster/manager's organization.
Yeah, and I know we'll let Brian talk about the political stuff, but we already have people lined up that I think are going to run with that for us when that gets introduced. So Brian, do you want to touch on the politics over the last month and what we might be dealing with in the next month, and the Senate on their Republican retreat on Monday the 20th, and how that might affect us a little bit?
Yeah, thanks, Evan. Excuse me, everybody. Good to see you all again today. Jim's right. We are lining up supporters in the House and the Senate who can carry our Title 39 language forward when we have it ready to introduce. We've spoken to several House members on the Republican and Democrat side about doing that for us. Some good interest from members in both parties to do that. I think we have, a group of, really good, trusted members, on the House side and the Senate side that we're approaching and having those conversations with. I think, it shouldn't be too hard actually for us to find a Republican in the House that will lead this for us. And having a bipartisan bill is really important with a very narrow, divide in the House and the Senate. So having a bipartisan bill is a really good thing for consideration. We'll have somebody, I think, who will be not directly in leadership, but very close to the leadership in the House and the Republican side, which will be a big help, and somebody who has some good political clout as well. We have awareness from our friends at the Oversight Committee on our interest in putting this issue forward. I think they're very sympathetic to our message, and will be, once we have a bill, interested in taking a good look at that. I had a conversation on Monday with Chairman Comers, so leads senior counsel for postal issues, Bill Womack. Edmund had a very good conversation with him in the lead up to our testimony on Capitol Hill in December. He has a very prominent role this year with Chairman Comer. Chairman Comer, according to Bill, was a big proponent and did a lot of work on postal reform, and he's going to be committed to seeing it adequately implemented. And I think that's really good news for us. And I'm really pleased on the Senate side with Chairman Peters. I ran into his top staffer while I was up there today, and she too is very committed to strong oversight on PSRA. They are very closely following the network changes that are rolling out, and really interested in our feedback on that. Of course, being from Michigan, they care about vehicles a whole lot. So that is something that they are really concerned about. And then the Medicare integration and new healthcare benefits, making sure that gets done effectively and timely is something they're really looking at. So a lot of good momentum, a lot of receptivity to our key issues. The Senate has a couple of other things like potential nominees for the PRC, the Board of Governors, that'll keep them very busy as well this year. So I think it'll be not quite the same year it was last year working on postal reform, but still a lot to do and a lot of issues that people are caring about. The other thing that both Bill and Annika volunteered is that, and we'll need to talk about this at Summit as well. A lot of members of Congress are hearing about safety of postal employees out on the street and while doing their job. And so that is an issue that members are hearing about more and care about. And so we'll make sure we have good messages for everyone. If somebody asks about what the status is on safety for yourselves and for your team.
Yeah, and just so we get the postal terminology right. So what you're already talking about is security. We have more and more carriers being assaulted, people ripping off arrow keys, that sort of thing. And it's coming to a head because there's an uptick in crime everywhere, and the Postal Service is an easy target, and people are stealing vehicles. Last week there was a vehicle stolen off a route. You get access with a postal vehicle to places that you wouldn't otherwise get access to. So that security issue. What's happening is there's a push for an expansion of the role of the postal police. And so that's the political side of that will be, again, UPMA sometimes has to take this center position where we say, yes, we're with you on safety and security of postal employees. That's our number one concern as managers. Those are the people that work with us. That's our postal family. However, the uptick on security of our men and women that are delivering the mail in the streets is because of the law enforcement or the lack of it in some of our communities. Nothing to do what we're doing. It isn't necessarily a postal issue, the security. So we have, there's always that political thing where you want to say, well, the rhetoric would be DeJoy doesn't care about the letter carriers. Look, he's letting them get assaulted. No, we're on the same street we were on 10 years ago, and that wasn't happening. There's something changed in the culture. Now we want to ensure that that they're safe and secure. So we're going to train a lot of that on Monday at Summit, just because so when you get that pushback, you get that question coming the other way, you're prepared to answer it. There are solutions. And we're happy to work with Congress with those solutions. The current administration at L'Enfant Plaza will say, if it's an unfunded mandate, we'll do whatever you want. You just got to pay for it. You want electric vehicles, you got to pay for it. They paid for it. We got electric vehicles. So we'll teach that a lot. But it's I want to swing back on a couple of things that you said with Annika and with Bill on the oversight under PSRA and the nominations, both the PRC nominations and the Board of Governor nominations. So under PRSA, I forget how there's a frequency to which the PMG has to report out on how well we're implementing the Postal Service Reform Act, right? I can't remember what it is off the top of my head either, but I know he has to report to Congress. Do you know how that'll come around in a hearing? That'll be a report they'll send. How will that manifest itself?
So I think that is an active conversation that's happening in Congress right now. They are trying to figure out what they want to do with that. There's sort of two schools of thought. One is, do you have one big hearing that covers sort of every topic, or do you try and segment it out a little bit to cover bits and pieces? Maybe all of them not with Mr. DeJoy. And when it comes to having the PMG come to Congress, what do you try and focus on so you can get really concrete progress during the course of the hearing, rather than something that's maybe a free-for-all, right, that doesn't really necessarily drive home a result at the end of it, other than maybe making people feel better with some headlines or something like that. So that is the active conversation happening in Congress right now.
Okay, and we'll be
and both the Senate and the House are grappling with the same set of questions. Okay,
all right, and we may not have closure on that anytime soon, but I'm sure we're part of that conversation. People are asking for our opinion. How should this look? And who knows? Maybe we'll have some input when those come and questions come. We can be part of that conversation also. Yeah. So that's good. When it comes to the PRC nominations and the Board of Governor nominations, there's no vacancies yet, but people are in either their last year of their term or in their holdover year. There have been no nominations, right, to either the PRC or the Board of Governors from the president?
Correct.
Okay.
But there will be a PRC opening. I think Commissioner Taub, everything we've heard so far is that he will be nominated by President Biden for another term on the PRC. He's been a good friend to UPMA. If he is renominated, we would certainly endorse that. What will happen with the Board of Governors is really anybody's guess at this point. Somebody said to me this week, the White House really has a political hot potato on its hands. So that's going to be interesting to see what the White House ultimately decides to do, because there are a number of very politically charged questions that they need to confront, and what they do. So,
and we'll talk about that, and we'll probably talk about that at Summit too. There's some of the players that could be nominated. The board of the member of the governor that's in his holdover year could be renominated. He's eligible for another 7-year term. That would make the most sense for me, but I don't get to pick. So and again, we don't generally get involved in suggesting nominations to the Board of Governors, but we will probably weigh in as and when nominations are made. You know, our stance is and always is, we really don't care who goes on the board, as long as there's a Board of Governors, as long as there's 9 to make the 11 member panel. It's very hard to run an organization or an agency this size without that. So, okay, that's good. So what you should be doing now leading up to Summit. We talked on the call today. We did promise a spreadsheet with staffers and schedulers, and apparently that didn't get done. So Chris is working on that. I should have that to you tomorrow. That should be in everybody's inboxes tomorrow. A lot of you already have that information. They're already working, I'm sure. You can go to the websites, to the congress.gov websites, and look up your congressman and find it that way too. But it is nice to have it on the spreadsheet. So we're working on that. Sunday night, there'll be an event, most likely for PAC medallion winners, other invited guests. We're working on some local congressmen to come in, congressmen and women to come in and speak to us on that Sunday night. Lunch is on your own on Monday, but there will be again an invitation only lunch. We're efforting a speaker for that. For those of you that have been in attendance for those, we're going to start at 9 on Saturday because we don't have the Super Bowl party to get over like we did last year. The PMG is committed and scheduled and in stone at 10 o'clock. So I know well enough not to schedule anything after him until after lunch. So he goes up at 10. Go ahead, Jim.
You said Saturday. You mean Monday?
You said Saturday. You
Monday.
mean
I'm sorry,
right?
Monday. You're right. Monday. I'm sorry, Monday. Come on backwards from Sunday to Saturday. Sunday to Monday. Monday will start at 9 o'clock. Opening ceremony. You know, it won't be a big opening ceremony, but we'll do a little bit of a rah-rah. And then Lewis gets up there at 10. He usually goes 30, 45 minutes. He usually takes questions. I'm going to give him as much leeway as I can. He doesn't really, the government relations, Peter Pastor will be coming, but they don't want to speak concurrently. So Peter didn't want to go before the Postmaster General. He wants to be there, listen to him speak. So I invited him to lunch. So he'll speak after. Jim will give you the lowdown on what to do for meetings, the position paper. The lobbying report will be a little different this year for you technophiles. It's going to be a QR code. So we will have some paper ones because I know Tony will be there and he doesn't know how to spell QR code. So there will be some paper ones, but you'll scan the QR codes, you'll fill it out on SurveyMonkey, you'll hit send. There'll be a place for you to put who was in the visit, a place for you to put who you're visiting with, and answer to all the questions yes or no, and a little bit of. So it should be a lot easier to do it right on your phone. It'll be a lot easier for us to keep track of that than all those lobbying reports. On Tuesday, we have the Eisenhower Room at the Capitol Hill Club, right across the street from Cannon, from 10 until 4. We're serving lunch from 11 to 1. Not sure what that is yet, but we're going to serve like a box lunch. It'll be an easy in and out. So you don't have to worry about finding somewhere to eat on the hill. You can just run over there and grab lunch and hang out there and bring your questions there. And if you have need run out of position papers, probably one of the 5 or 6 of us will be in that room during the day. So that'll be on Tuesday during the day. Finish your meetings up about 5 o'clock. We are efforting a room on the Senate side because the House is not in session, but the Senate is. A room on the Senate side for a reception 5 to 7, 6 to 8, something like that on the Senate side. That is not finalized yet, but we will be we'll be updating you on that. There are several bills. Obviously, the big push is going to be Web GPO, HR 82. The Jerry Connolly introduced another bill to allow MSPB rights to all EAS employees, which we fully support. And then there'll be dueling bills on representation and Title 39 reform that we'll talk about. So Before I have John speak a little bit on PAC, is there any questions about where we are legislatively, where we are politically, or the legislative summit before we move on?
Hey, Edmund, Tony.
Go ahead, Tom.
Hey, Brian, questions for you. How does it look for movement on that bill, the web GPO? I mean, that's the big one. That's what everyone's hoping get some movement. Honestly, tough haul, uphill, got a chance. What do you think?
You know, it's an uphill battle. There is no question. It's not an easy vote. Even though 300 people signing on last year, to probably 150 in a month. That's there are not a lot of bills that have 150 people unless it has to do with a Chinese balloon. That is
Alleged.
no aliens apparently.
Is there a compromise bill that you see coming out of that? Because it seems like there's got to be some middle ground.
So, Tony, that's a really good question. I think, and the honest answer is very, very candidly and very straightforward. With a new chairman at the Ways and Means Committee, Jason Smith, he has not been strong on this issue in the past. He has supported it. He's co-sponsored it before, but he's always co-sponsored Kevin Brady's version of the bill. Kevin Brady really cared about this because of the people in Texas, were really impacted. A lot of Texas people are dealing with this issue. So Kevin Brady really cared. And there was always this thought that between what the
Brian.
repeal.
Know what happened? Did your microphone go out?
No, can't hear me.
I can hear you.
We can hear him, Edmund.
Yep,
We
can't
can
hear
hear
you. So
Hear me?
I'll try and pick up from what he was going to say.
Edmund,
There's
we can
always
hear
been
him.
different versions of this bill. The problem with it is it doesn't score well. I think philosophically, everybody kind of agrees, hey, you paid into Social Security, you deserve to get Social Security, you should get your Social Security. I don't think that's a problem. The problem is it doesn't score well. So for those of you that watched the fun that was swearing in day and the gang at 20 or 19 or whatever it is, they get a lot of sway and they're going to be banging the drum saying, Social Security, it's got to pay for itself. Where are we going to find the money? It takes a certain amount of time off before the Social Security goes insolvent. So that's an uphill battle. It took us 12 years to get postal reform, and we didn't have anywhere near this number of co-sponsors year after year after year on postal reform. So it's not going to be easy, but we can do hard things, and we've proven that already. So and there's other reasons to go. So web GPO is a big one, obviously, for all our retirees, any of our civil service retirees that are directly affected by web GPO, and those other people that we know in our communities, federal community, this thing. But to use that vehicle then to get it's while we're here, can we talk to you about this? And while we're here, can we talk to you about that? So it's a tough hill, but it's no hill for a climber. So we're going to give it the old college try. So did you come back, Brian? Are you good?
There should be
Nope,
enough support for the bill.
The box is coming up, but I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Edmund,
Okay.
we can hear him. We can hear him.
I can't hear anybody.
You can hear me?
We can hear him.
We can hear him. Talk, Brian.
Okay.
Maybe
Okay.
it's me.
So with the new chairman at the Ways and Means Committee, that changes some of the calculus a little bit. We have we have a good team in Missouri that has a long established relationship with Chairman Smith. So there's some reason for optimism, but we don't know what he will want to do with this issue. The fact that Social Security is really been a political hot button since the State of the Union. it doesn't help matters either, and kind of puts people in a box politically that can be unhelpful. So, still, we have 151 members. We have over 300 last year. Most of those people came back. Some of them didn't, but most of them did. There should be well over 218 votes to pass this bill. So a compromise ultimately is still probably the end result.
And Brian, who would sponsor, who would present that? Because that's the key, I think.
Truthfully, I think the people who have to broker the compromise are leadership. So whether it's McCarthy, Scalise, Schumer, those are the folks that, if they're going to get this done, those are the people who have to come together to make it happen.
Okay.
So, Edmund, do you have sound for us?
I'm good. I'm back now. I don't know, my speakers quit working. I had to switch, so I apologize for that, everybody. I was panicked, Brian, and it was my technology, not his. So I think we covered everything on the summit. Did anybody else have any other questions? There's a couple questions in the chat. Installations, I will ask, if there's newly installed postmasters, and have him do the ceremony. I hadn't thought of that, but I will ask. And yes, I'll send notes out from this meeting for those of you that can't.
Hey, who is lobbying? Is there anyone lobbying against Title 39 reform or Web GPO?
Well, Web GPO, there's nobody technically lobbying against it. It's just if you're on the right side of the spectrum politically, it's expansion of a government program that already isn't paying for itself, so it doesn't score well. It's hard to tell. It's hard to logically and ethically say, well, I'm against somebody getting a benefit that they've earned. So they don't do that. They just say, well, it doesn't score well, and Social Security is whatever the buzzwords are at the time. Title 39 is just I don't believe Congress cares one way or the other. What we have to be careful of is that we introduce a bill that, at worst, the service is neutral on. At worst, hopefully, on the representation piece, I don't think they're going to care. I don't think they care if NAPS represent supervisors, postmasters, Uncle McDonald and the whole farm, or we do. I don't think they care. So they're going to they're going to stay out of that one. When we start talking about how we interact on pay talks and how the needle we have to thread is somewhere between what we have now and binding arbitration. Right? We're not going to get binding arbitration, but there's got to be somewhere in between. And if we can get to a point where the Postal Service is at least Switzerland, and they're not railing against it, I think it's got a good chance of passage. Of course, if we have a bill going one way and NAPS has a bill going the other, that could cause issues. There will be bills, I'm sure, Jeff, on shipping alcohol, all those things that we didn't get into the PSRA last year. I'm sure they will all come back, and they should. So, all right. Any other questions on politics, legislative, or the summit?
Yeah, Edmund,
Jason?
do we expect that if we introduce something on Title 39, NAPS will come out straight up against it?
NAPS already had a bill introduced, and I read it, and I don't fully understand what they're trying to get to. So they already have a bill.
Okay.
It is. I'm pretty good at this stuff, and I can't make heads or tails of what they're trying to get after. Jerry Connolly introduced that bill. He also introduced a bill on MSPB representation for everybody. Jerry's great at introducing bills. Beyond that, I haven't had a lot of success in recent years with the stuff I've been watching. Yes, I'm sure that unless it's given NAPS the whole hat, they think they won with the appeal court decision. they think they've already won everything they wanted. They just need to go after this, this binding arbitration thing. So yeah, it's going to be murky. It's going to be muddy. It's going to take everybody paying attention, staying on top of the subject, and it'll probably take years. But again, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing. Anybody else?
Edmund, what about buying back pre-career on time towards retirement?
Yeah, and that's something that we kind of put on the back burner, and we should talk about that. So non-career time, right? Is that what you're talking about, Jimmy? Like PMR time?
Yeah, you were a RCA for me, or a CSE or CCA, whatever.
Yeah,
Before
yeah.
started.
I know the rural union did some work on that with RCA time. Let me run that up the flagpole. There's no reason we can't get involved in that.
There has been a bill. There has been a bill introduced the last two Congresses. Derek Kilmer of Washington introduced it, so it's out there.
Okay, all right. Well, again, I think, that we're a team here, so we discuss these things. And I think individual bills like that are smart. Maybe get them attached to something else if need be. But here's where the selling point is on that to the Postal Service. I make $100 grand a year being a level 20 postmaster, but I'm 5 years short of retiring because my first 5 years I'm a PMR. Is it cheaper for them to let me buy those 5 years and retire early and start paying me my annuity and then bring in a postmaster at 70 grand a year into my position? Or is it just better just let me work the next 5 years? That's the calculation to get something like that passed. But it's certainly something we should put on the front burner, not the back burner. Thanks for bringing it up, Jim.
Welcome.
All right, Mr. Dowds, do you want to say a few words about PAC and all the joyous things you and your lovely wife are planning for us for Summit?
Sure. Yeah, I'm. It's hearing everybody talk since postal reform. The post office really hasn't been in the news as a sort of hot topic, and I really think it's our job as postal managers to kind of keep the Postal Service in the minds of the congressmen and women and the senators. And I'm super impressed that since postal reform passed, still the next year we have 300 plus managers attending this legislative conference, and I'm sure that number is going to grow more. We talk about the freshmen on the Hill. I'm certainly the freshman when it comes to the legislative thing, but I'm in charge of the PAC and raising money, and we're going to have some fundraising when we get there, but we'll talk about that more when we get there. But I'm here to help, and I'm looking forward to learning from these guys and helping in any way I can. So thanks, Evan.
Yep. So thanks, John. Yeah, baptism of fire, brother. Didn't realize it was going to be work. Here's my first convention. I'm going to West Virginia on the 25th of this month. I'll be taking PAC supplies up there and flipping a coin, I'm sure. For you PAC chairs that are on here, you can start ordering your supplies. We have all the supplies. We have the new pins. Envelopes have been ordered. We still have enough, but we ordered a bunch more. So you can start ordering your supplies from Jerry anytime you want. The PAC table will be obviously in Summit, and we'll do some group activities there. So there'll be some goals. We're going to work on goals. I'm bringing Jim and John both in a week before Summit, and we're going to sit down and do all the presentations and work through the exactly the direction we want to go into, and we'll be setting PAC goals for conventions for this year, and really for your chapter for the year. Some of them we have in the past. So I look forward to another bumpy year. We set a target. Brian, Chris, Joel, and I, we set a target, try and raise, actually it was Chris's idea, try and grow the PAC by 10% this year. We have about 700 and change sitting on hand. We budgeted to raise that much the next 2 years and spend that much the next 2 years. The 23-24 election cycle is going to be an interesting one on every level, including the presidency. For a a political guy like me, it's fun times to be living in DC. So thanks.
Hey,
Go
John,
ahead.
do you need volunteers for the PAC table?
Yes, definitely will.
Put me down for a slot.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mhm.
Awesome. So having said all that, is there any other questions anybody wants us to cover before we go here? All right, guys, safe travels. I guess we'll speak one more time, like I say, the week of. And three or four of the people on this call will be in the office when we do the next one. You know, get those meetings scheduled. Get ready to come and learn and take the message up there. We'll finally get to fight something for directly affects UPMA members and not just postal reform. So 40-minute telecon, I think we did pretty good. Any other business before we go?
Eben, you got my message, didn't you?
Who's this?
Dominic, I'm sorry.
Oh, hey, Dominic. About
I got a meeting with Congressman Edwards, who's a new congressman, and he's on
Yeah.
the oversight committee.
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
that's a big one for us. Yes, that's great. Yes, thanks, Tom.
Well, any extra coaching I'll surely take.
Yep, we'll do. We'll do. All right, guys. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you all next month.
Night.
Thanks,
Good night.
guys.